Hello, my name is Donal McCauley, and welcome to medicsvoices.com, where we talk to the key opinion leaders in health and medicine around the world. Today, we're talking to Claire Lenne, who's an emergency care doctor, but she's had the most exciting and wonderful career, and she's talking to us from the island of Reunion in the Indian Ocean. Claire, let's take you back to the very beginning. When you were a student, what interested you in medicine and this type of medicine?
I studied medicine in France, in named Angers, and it was 10 years of study. And I chose emergency doctor to be emergency doctor because I liked the variety of the job and to have very serious cases and not serious cases, and some very fun people sometimes, and very mixed exercise.
So, how did you train then? When you graduated, where did you train in emergency medicine?
Just after my graduate, I came to Réunion Island. So it's a very little French island next to Madagascar and Mauritius. And I worked in public hospital in emergency room. And very quickly, I become to discover many different way to work like emergency doctor and in many different places of the world. And it was very interesting.
So, you had this wish to travel the world. So, you're in the island of Reunion, which is a really exciting place to begin with. But
Yes.
then tell us about all the other places you've worked in.
Okay, so I worked in a nuclear plant in China. I worked in scientific boats going very in the Indian Ocean. 6 months ago, I was in Antarctica for a scientific expedition on the ice. And what else? And I worked in oil industry in Africa, Nigeria, and Gabonese Republic, and different things like this.
Well, let's take you through all these steps because they're absolutely fascinating and so different to most of us. So, take us to China. Tell us about your work in China.
In China, it was very strange because I came at the end of the COVID pandemic, so everything were closed, and I discovered the confinement. I was in quarantine centers of the government, and we had a PCR test in the mouth every day. And just after that, I worked in the nuclear plant, but my French diploma is not recognized by Chinese government, so I couldn't care the Chinese people. I was there just to care the expatriates.
So, what type of care was that? Was that more or less general practice or was it emergency care?
It's more general practice, but when there is a very strong problem, it's very important to be aware to take to care an emergency. But most part of any of my contracts, it's general practice medicine.
So, when had patients who were ill in China, did they go to the Chinese hospital and did you care for them in the Chinese hospital?
Yes, but the Chinese hospital is at 100 kilometers of the nuclear plant, so it's not very quick.
You also worked in the Caribbean. Tell us about the Caribbean because that's another very luxurious place that we think about. But when you're working there, it's not quite as luxurious. It's hard work. Tell us about it.
In Martinique and Guadeloupe, I worked, and they are very little French islands, quite like Réunion Island. And I worked in a public hospital, and we had very mixed practice, like breathlessness and injuries and fever. And but we need to care with the local culture and with local beliefs sometimes, and with local problems like drugs or like violence into the family. Um, and we care just next volcano. So it was interesting also to have this wondering about maybe one time the volcano will erupt, and it didn't happen.
Well, let me ask you about working in Martinique. You worked in the hospital. What was the standard of medicine like in the hospital?
Not like in Paris. really not. By example, we didn't have informatic into the emergency room, so it was so strange for me to take the pen and write on the paper and to make a copy when the patient discharged. But we can do many things with our hands, and we try to do the best, but it's not like in Paris.
And what about the equipment? Did you had X-rays, but did you have MRI, CT scan?
Yes, we have all of this. Sometimes what we don't have is a very technical surgery, and sometimes these types like graft, and some types of patients needs to take the airplane to Paris, but it's maybe one every 2 weeks, not very often.
Now you mentioned something, and it's your particular interest. Your interest is in volcanoes. Tell us how
Yeah,
that
yeah.
interest began.
Because in Réunion Island, we have a volcano, one of the more active of the Earth. And I like to go to see and watch during hours and hours. And little by little, I wanted to understand and understand the gas, understand the lava, and how is it to be so beautiful, and what is dangerous, what is not. And that's why I begin to try to understand other volcanoes than mine. And to go to Caribbean.
Well, it's not just an interest because you did a university course in volcanoes. Tell us
Yeah,
about
right.
that.
Yeah, very interesting. It was evening lessons, special for adults, and it was interesting to learn anything else than medicine and discovering any other center of interest.
So then let's take you to South America because you also worked in South America. Tell us about that experience.
Okay, it's another very little French place named Guyane, French Guyana, and it's the forest everywhere, and so another very different place about comparing to what I know. And by example, to a patient having an appendicitis needs to take the little boat, and to go on the river during 7 hours to arrive to the hospital to have surgery. So, and we had a lot of very various diseases that I didn't know before, like leishmaniose or Q fever. I learned this, but it was far away from my mind. And to see also the impact of the culture and the beliefs of the people. Mm.
How did the beliefs of the people impinge on medicine?
By example, they believe the heart is linked to the body with a rope, and when you had a problem, the rope is broken. And if you go to see the doctor, it's the man think I will repair the roads to put the hurt at the good place anywhere in another time. And it was very strange to understand that. And sometimes they believe about spirits, and if you are afraid, if you are tired, maybe a spirit came into you, and you go to see the doctor, so then the doctor takes the spirit out of you. Sorry, I don't know how to do that.
That was certainly the extended role of the emergency physician.
Yeah. Very interesting, yes.
Well, it was very isolated. It was difficult medicine if it's 7 hours by boat to the hospital.
Yeah, if you had a very important emergency, you can call the helicopter, but it takes 1 hour to go, and the helicopter need to be available. It's not very often. The night it cannot fly, and it was not so easy.
Now, we've talked about Reunion and we've talked about the Caribbean and we've talked about South America, and these are all tropical warm countries. But then you headed south. Tell us about your trip to the Antarctic.
Antarctica, so unbelievable. It was just 1 year ago, and I needed to take 8 airplanes to go to Antarctica during the summer, and I was a doctor of a very big expedition we were 10 people with tractors on the ice, and we take fuel and food to take to the scientific station of Concordia, and we needed to do 2,000 kilometers during 28 days, and it was an experience very, very, very foolish. And we experimented the ice at minus 40 degrees, and each part of your skin needs to be protected because it's painful. And there were a lot of storms. Sometimes everything were white, and you need to drive your tractor because the doctor is also a tractor driver. Mm.
So tell us about the medical problems that you met along the way.
In Antarctica, I was more sick because my nose, I had nose bleeding during quite every day during 10 days. And it was not so strong, not so serious, but I fear a lot because I was alone and there is no other doctor, no specialist to take care about me. And if if it was worsening, I was really alone. And what else? I had chest pain for one people, and gastroenteritis for another one, and some little injuries on the fingers because they are mechanical and they do a lot of little problems.
Then after that expedition, you came back, but you came back on a ship. That was interesting. Tell us
Yes.
about who you met on the ship and the type of problems that people came across.
To come back from Antarctica, we go back by a special ship. We can drive on the ice, and it was 6 days, and we finished in South Australia. The name is Tasmania, and the sea were very, very dangerous, and the boats were right and left and right and left, and we had very, very dangerous waves. And we also needed to stop in a very little island, Australian island, to take care about one man who had a near knee, and to take him to go back to Australia. And yeah, this was this type. And because of the storms, we had 3 injuries. People, one is very fun. The man wanted to do yoga on the boat, but it was a bad idea in the storm. So he he hurt his head, and he needed stretches, and it was so fun. Not fun for him, but fun for us.
One of the islands that you visited is the island of Kerguelen, which must
Yes.
be the most isolated island on Earth. Tell us about that.
Kerguelen, we have only 20 people on the winter and 100 people on the summer. They live there for one year maximum. They are scientists, and to go there, we need to take the boat for 5 days. We cannot go by airplane. So if you have an emergency, it's 5 days of sea. And there you have 2 doctors. They stay there for 1 year, and they can do a surgery of emergency if they need. And I was very happy to see the doctor of the end of the world. And around Kerguelen, you have about I needed to take care about one fisherman, and he had a comportment problem, and we take him back to South Africa by boat.
So you've traveled the world and now you're back in Reunion. What is the next exciting adventure you're planning?
Just last week, I ran the Diagonale des Fous, if you know. It's an ultra trail, maybe you know it. And it was not medicine, but very, very interesting adventure. So for now, I have all what I need of adventure. Just I need to rest and maybe to plan the next one.
Now, on these various travels, it wasn't all work because you did lots of other things. One of the things you did was diving. Tell us about your diving.
Yes, I like diving. I like to see after on the earth to see under the sea. and I'm not very, very good, but just to watch and to be happy to discover of the wonder of the wonder of the world. And yeah, it's very interesting. It's different of the medicine because it's very quiet and slow, but it's nice after adrenaline to go down and just rest under the sea.
And at the other end, of the other extreme, you're interested in climbing and you climb these volcanoes.
Yeah. I have a little movie. I climb on the volcano with my flute and I play flute with the volcano erupting, doing like percussion.
So for a doctor who's intrigued by your career and wanted to follow that career, what would your advice be?
First is to dream because when I was teenager, I dreamed a lot, and I needed to wait, and it was not comfortable to wait, but it's important to dream. Then I had all this idea with meeting people and speak with them, and with other doctors. They give you ideas, and then you apply, and after that it's okay. So yes, it's my second advice is to speak with other people and to meet very interesting people.
Thank you very much for describing your career to us today. It's absolutely fascinating, and I'm sure everyone is really very jealous of what a wonderful medical career and what you can do in medicine because people don't often think like that. Thank you very much
Mm.
indeed.
Thank you very much.